what do you know? The Big Daddy G Show. The Big Daddy G Show. Hi, folks. I'm Big Daddy G, and today we're going to interview somebody that I think is amazing, and everybody I know thinks is amazing. Her name is Pearly Gates. She's a cowboy poet, and she's a musician, and she writes music, and she writes songs. So if you need a song written, you need some music written, and you want quality, this is where you go. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to my friend, Pearly Gates. Pearly, where were you born, Pearly?
I was born at an early age on the East Coast.
On the East Coast?
Yep.
Okay. So, like cold East Coast?
Yeah, pretty
Coast?
cold East Coast.
Okay.
Yeah.
And tell me about your schooling. I mean, did you went
Public
to
school.
public school?
The highlight of my elementary schooling was the set of books in the back of the room that were biographies of Calamity Jane,
Okay.
Annie Oakley, Daniel Boone. I was in heaven.
Nice. Do you have any kids?
I have stepkids.
Stepkids?
Well,
Awesome.
yeah, pretty much.
Well,
Yeah.
kids. Kids,
Yeah.
are, stepkids are kids. Do you have any pets?
I do. I have a dog right now. She's a mix, a cross between a blue heeler, mom,
Okay.
and a dachshund, dad,
And her name is?
Sadie.
Nice. Nice. And how did you come up with the name Sadie?
Well, she had been named Celeste. I didn't like it, so I wanted to start with and Sadie came out.
Okay. Well, I met Sadie. She's awesome. She's so pretty. But she doesn't look spoiled at all. You might want to consider spoiling her a little. Yeah, okay.
Write that down. Let me get my phone out.
At what age did you decide to get into music? Or did you say, wow, music?
Yeah, I kind of said that at an early age. I think I was 5 years old, and somebody gave me a harmonica, and I ended up walking around with that harmonica in my mouth. That was the start of it for me. I loved it.
So that was the first instrument
That was
that you
actually
played, the harmonica? Really?
Yep.
Do you remember who gave it to you?
Probably my folks.
Your folks? Okay.
I still have it. It's right over there on that
nice.
table. Yeah.
Nice.
Why don't somebody grab that? I want to show that harmonica.
Can we grab it?
It's on the table and it's blue. Thank you, Tyrone. It's got key of C and the key of B flat. This was what I walked around. It's called the Magnus Duotone. So this thing goes back to, well, I'd be giving my age away, wouldn't I? That's the C, and then the B flat's going to be a little lower. Anyway, yeah.
Awesome. Other than music, what other hobbies do you have?
Building. I like to build.
Nice.
It's nice when, you don't have a lot of money. You can create a home for yourself. What a concept.
Right.
Oh, my gosh. I might copyright that. No. Yeah, I like to make things with my hands. Right now, I'm actually learning how to drive a team of horses. Wow. Happens to be halflingers, but I can't ride anymore because I have osteoporosis. It's not really wise to get on the back of a horse, especially a tall horse. So I thought, well, I could get behind one. So that's one of my hobbies now.
How did you get into traditional music?
Well, on my way to school, and we're talking high school now, I had to take a bus, and then I had to walk up a hill and walk a bunch of blocks down to the high school. I passed a public library, and the first time I went into that library, I discovered a hallway, some stairs, another hallway, and there, down that hall, was the record room. And we are not talking like paper records, this was the room. The room was lined everywhere. It was thousands of 33 RPM records. There was red vinyl of Allen Ginsberg, but mostly there was a whole wall of folk music. There was world folk music. There was American folk music. And it was right about the time that public radio was starting to have folk shows and things like that, and I could listen, and I was mesmerized.
Yeah. I remember going to the library and listening to the Smothers Brothers albums.
Uh-huh.
You know, and I always thought that was
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Well, I would walk home with as many of
It's
these
good.
albums as I could possibly
That's
carry.
awesome.
That's awesome. I was a kid in a candy store.
You were that into it. Awesome. Now, what about cowboy poetry? What got you into cowboy poetry?
I was at a fiddle camp run by Jay Unger, and his daughter, Ruthie, was 6 years old. And one night, when everybody was getting up and jamming or performing, Ruthie stood up, 6-year-old, and she recited Wally McCrae's poem, Reincarnation.
Nice.
And I had to say, okay, if a 6-year-old can do that one,
Right.
I should be able to manage it. And so that motivated me to learn some basically sort of what I would have to call contemporary cowboy poetry.
Now, Pearlie lives in Texas, and she lives kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So why did you choose to move out into the middle, basically out in the middle of nowhere, out in the woods type thing?
I like the quiet.
Okay.
I got spoiled
Uh-huh.
early on. As a young adult, I moved to New Hampshire, lived in the middle of the woods there, and I guess I just got used to having quiet around me. Being a musician, being a person who's totally keyed into aural, A-U-R-A-L, audio stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of sound and noise bugs me, it distracts me, so I like the peace and quiet.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't blame you. Tell me about your parents.
My mom played the piano.
Nice.
We had a big upright
Yeah.
in the basement, and that was, by the way, the first official formal musical training I had was piano lessons. But Mom played piano, so that gave me kind of some interest in music. Mom emigrated to the United States, came from Vienna in Austria.
Nice.
Dad grew up in Syracuse, New York,
Uh-huh.
and they met in New York City.
Okay. And did your dad play any instruments?
The radio.
The radio?
Yeah. Yeah. No, Dad wasn't musical. He was more scientific background.
Okay. And did he ever tell you how they met?
They were working in the same hospital during the war, the big one, World War II.
World War II.
Yeah.
Wow. What was your relationship with your mom and dad? Were you closer to mom or were you closer to dad?
There was different things that I was close to each about. Yeah. Dad and I had a great time on Sunday mornings making hot oatmeal together, and that was our thing. And Mom and I had our other stuff that we did. We'd go shopping.
Right.
We'd go do this or that together.
And at what age did you start taking piano lessons?
I was in the 5th grade,
Okay.
I think, 4th or 5th grade when I started.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
And you still play piano now because I saw a keyboard over here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once in a while,
Once in a while.
I will play. Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember the first time you fell in love?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How old do you think you were when that happened?
I was about 6.
6? Aw. Okay.
Yeah.
6 years old. So you were in
Andy
like in
Circus.
6 years old, and you were like in what grade?
1st grade.
First grade? Oh, that's adorable.
He was a neighbor.
Uh-huh.
Awfully cute.
Oh.
And then he moved away.
Okay.
My world crashed. The bubble broke. Yeah.
If you could spend 1 hour with one person, whether they've been passed away already or they're still with us, who would that be and why?
Probably Calamity Jane.
Okay.
She is a Western figure.
Right.
The reason, why is because she was so shrouded in myth.
Is she somebody that you admired?
She was one of the first females that I learned about who found her way in the world, found what she loved to do for work, and did it anyway, even though girls weren't supposed to, women or girls. And I found that very liberating
Okay.
and inspiring.
Nice. Nice. If I could give you one wish, and you could do anything you wanted with this wish other than money, what would you do with that wish? And you could do anything except having to deal with money. What would you do?
Good question. So if you would grant me one wish, I would like to be able to comprehend how people feel, to be more sensitive to their emotions, what's really going on inside their head and their heart at any given moment.
Okay.
To be able to understand people's motivations for why they do what they do.
And do you feel like you jump into things because you don't understand, because they don't communicate with you, or?
Well, I believe that if everyone knew why people did things, other people did things, that the world would be more peaceful.
Exactly. So communication is very important. So, well, Pearlie, I want to thank you. Like I said, I met you like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago.
Oh, at least 2 years.
At least 2
I'd
years ago.
say,
And I think I met you on the set of On the Fence
Yep.
on Johnson City.
Yeah, I was doing
And-
location sound.
Yeah. And dude, we just fell in love with you. You know, we just thought you're
It's
awesome.
Mutual admiration.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, folks, Pearlie Gates.
This is one of my early poems, and it's pretty much a true story about my first pair of cowboy boots. I grew up on Gabby, Hopalong, and Jean. My mind would wander far from home, for Western was my dream. I was darn determined and had to heed the call of horses, boots, and saddles. How I longed for them all. My first pair of cowboy boots were black Acme's, pointy-toed. The uppers boasted fancy inlay where a white and red pattern showed. I sported those suckers clear through kindergarten. Pretty near wore out the tread, and every night I stored 'em carefully underneath my bed. My parents watched in horror as the passion overtook me. With hat, chaps, and 6 guns, no one could overlook me. A cowboy sure was I, cowboy talking, cowboy walking, and those boots I wore so proudly, those boots were made for gawking. I never ever said a word, couldn't think of letting them go. I wore those suckers long past time. How was I to know? The one thing I could never do was to keep my feet from growing. The pinching that those boots had done to this day is showing. Well, my folks finally absconded with the pair. It wasn't gallantly. They stole them away one night. insolent thievery. Though my heart was broken, there was nothing I could do or say, for my cowboys taught me to listen, to respect, and to obey. About 30 years later, at a thrift shop down on Main, was it just coincidence or perhaps preordained? This $5 pair of boots called out. Whoa, what a prize! They were 50s, vintage, black, pointy-toed Acmes, identical, except in fact for size. A perfect fit. I couldn't believe the luck that followed me. And ever since, when I spiff up, I pull 'em on, you see. Now there's no moral here, just a suggestion for you browsers at the store. Snap up those bargains quickly and thank your karma for good scores. Thank you for listening. This one is called Changes at the Ranch, and it is pretty much true. Homesteading's a challenge, it's fair to say. Things go wrong most any old day. The work is varied, often different than planned. You're always solving problems and working with your hands. I arose one morning with a task to begin. That new chain on the chainsaw, thought I'd give it a spin and take down the old oak with one main flaw, which is dropping dead limbs over my back door. The morning was bright, the air filled with hope. I gathered my work clothes, chainsaw and rope, the long-handled axe, the gas oil mix, and started in thinking about all my tree-cutting tricks. It was an ornery critter from the very get-go. That tree pinched the saw bar and would not let go. Took hours to finally work it free. Some days just go wrong, completely. Well, I started back cutting once that tree was laid down and promptly ran out of gas, no more to be found. It was an hour-long run for that trip to the pump. Then I started back in on that cantankerous stump. A blizzard of wood chips was whizzing by. Don't you know, I caught one in the corner of my eye. On the walk to the sink for the Bausch and Lomb rinse, I allowed the question, did I have any sense? But as the sun was setting over in the west, I set to splitting those chunks laid to rest. Small ones go quick with an axe sharp and right, but a 32-incher is a mighty daunting sight. You need the right weapons, muscle and grit to downsize those monsters for a good wood stove fit. Those big ones ain't easy. One learns to attack with a maul and a wedge and a hell of a whack. Except the maul, it was gone, vanished somewhere, and the wedge as well, not here and not there. So I stayed with the axe. What was I thinking? I surely knew better, and I wasn't even drinking. Well, that axe head got buried about 4 inches deep in that hardwood, which might cause a gal for to weep. But I rose to the cause, gave the handle a yank. The crack was deafening, to be honest and frank. Yeah, that's when I popped out these 2 vertebrae. Had to sleep standing up, which ain't restful, I'd say. Oh, the morning drive was painful going back into town. I'm getting an automatic next time around. Well, I had an adjustment, then advice from the chiropractor. She said, you're working too hard. That's the main factor. Working is fine. It'll keep you limber. Just go a little easy when you're chopping that timber. Well, we learn from our mistakes, as everyone knows, and humility is a virtue, as the old saying goes. So, yeah, I've had my lesson. I'm done with that craze. I've adapted. I'm leaving my old Luddite ways. I've changed my tune. I'm going hydraulic, sworn off the axe like a reformed alcoholic. Yes, got me a brand new wood splitter, and I'll tell you, indeed, it'll rip through that wood. I just have to feed it, which should leave more time for carpentry and such. Oh, the cabin will look spiffy with the finish work touch. So today, got a nail gun to put the new floor on, and no more hand chopping for this old oxymoron. So I wrote this one because I was about to perform at a Cowboy Poetry and Music gathering in Sierra Vista, Arizona. And the theme that year was rodeos and roundups. And this one's called Roundup Time in Roswell. Roswell, New Mexico, 1947. When it's roundup time in Roswell, all the cowboys ride the range with the guys in ties from the FBI, but it really don't seem so strange, 'cause they've all got a job to do. They're bringing in the sheep and shards, then hush the yard, hide it in the barn, and call the National Guard, singing yippee-ki-yay UFO, uh-oh, yippee-ki-yay UFO. Old Mac, the foreman at the Foster Ranch, was busy bringing in the ewes. He woke up surly, left a little early, didn't catch the radio news, though he never saw the flash, and he hadn't heard the crash. He found a mystery, now it's history, that extraterrestrial trash, singing yippee-ki-yay UFO, uh-oh, yippee-ki-yay UFO. Once Mac had called the sheriff, and the sheriff called the Air Force Base. Downtown Roswell tripled in size and became a hub for all things saucer and space. Now the tourists come to Roswell, and they're searching through the stars. But the folks in town hanging around say you really needn't look so far. Just grab your pup, don't be looking up. There's little footprints in the sand. Yeah, Rover sniffed 'em, really whiffed 'em, and he knows that's your man, singing yippee-ki-yay UFO, uh-oh, yippee-ki-yay UFO. Womp-bom, beetle-on-bum, Miss Rip-Rip got a little green thumb. Womp-bom, beetle-on-bo, what's all this talk about a UFO? When the roundup's done in Roswell, there'll be rhythm on the range. The FBI gonna lose those ties and let loose for a change. Yeehaw! With fiddles wailing, banjos frailing, locals dancing with little green aliens. It's the most attractive, radioactive, hottest time in town. It's the most attractive, radioactive, not all mammalian, hottest time in town. Singing yippee-ki-yay UFO, uh-oh, yippee-ki-yay UFO. Whoa. Oh my God, did you just see that? Whoa.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Ow, my nose! Ow, my finger.
Whenever y'all are ready, go
Who
ahead.
wrote that? Look at how terrible that looks. The Big Daddy G Show. Okay. My next question.
Okay. Old. Okay. Old who? Old Mac. Can I just cut right back into it? I won't go into that because that's a long story. But yeah, I'm gonna cough now.
Okay, go ahead and cough.
Get a little something to drink here. All right.
Okay, so if you'll notice every once in a while, I'm going to look back here because I have a list of questions that I want to ask you. So, I'm talking about like maybe something that you think had you not done, could it have changed your life now? Could your life be different because you didn't do that one thing?
Didn't do
If you
or
could
did
go
do.
back.
Oh, well, that time I robbed that bank really messed my
Well,
life
yeah,
up.
that's,
Oh, man, I'll tell
yeah.
you, spending those 17 years behind bars
Yeah,
was,
it helps to
that
get
was,
away with it.
that
yeah.
was something I really should
Yeah.
not have done. Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
if
I
you
have a
could-
vivid imagination.
that's cool.
I've been told. I don't know.
Well, I had a someone gave me a harmonica one time. It was a guy by the name of Billy Bob Thornton. Gave me a harmonica.
Yeah, I've heard
And
that name.
I ended up giving it to a friend of mine named Jacob that was going through some problems. And I said, dude, I think you need this more than I do. Keep you busy, give you something to do. And so I hope he still has it. Okay, so
Harmonica Tales. Stay tuned, folks, for the next
Harmonica
episode
Tales.
of Harmonica
Harmonica
Tales.
I read somewhere that milk actually causes osteoporosis. Dairy products, yeah.
Wow.
A doctor came out with a study that said that that's what causes osteoporosis.
I'll
is
be
milk.
darned.
And our whole lives we've been
Got
told
milk?
that
Yeah.
milk, it does the body good. I don't know.
I heard that after you're 3 years old, your body doesn't digest it anyway.
Huh.
Yeah. Go figure.
I know, but I sure do like it with brownies and cookies and, stuff like that. Hi-ho, what do you know? The Big Daddy G Show. The Big Daddy G Show. Can we all just get up on the Big Daddy G Show? Yeah, man. Why clean your room when you can do some shrooms? The Big Daddy G Show. Hi-ho, what do you know? The Big Daddy G Show. The Big Daddy G Show.